This video is sponsored by Morning Brew. Hey, happy Friday. This week Google announced a ton of cool stuff at I.O. The EU proposed a new set of rules that could potentially break end-to-end encryption, maybe forever, and Xiaomi got in even more really bad trouble. We've also stopped making tech knowledge quizzes, and if you haven't heard the news yet, you can get some details in a video somewhere here, and welcome to the Friday Checkout. Okay, we had an insanely busy week of big releases this week, starting with the DJI Mini 3, probably the most powerful tiny drone that's below 250 grams, so you can legally fly it just about anywhere, and you can get high quality footage on the go. It costs $669 for the drone alone, or about $759 including the controller, which is not cheap, but in terms of quality, my studio mate Kilian from Orbit claims that it's about 85% as good as a much bigger and much heavier Mavic. Then we have the Xperia 1 Mark IV and the 10 Mark IV, the newest phones from Sony, and these are pretty interesting. I love the classic boxy design, even it's a little bit same old. The 1 Mark IV has actual optical zoom capabilities between 3.5 and 5.2x, where the lenses physically move, and the screen is finally also bright enough to be seen outdoors properly. For $1,400, it's still pretty damn expensive, but at least you get a fancy pair of headphones and some other goodies in the pre-order, so there's that. While we are at Sony, they have also announced the 1000X M5 headphones, their new flagship model with supposedly fantastic noise cancelling, but also a design that no longer folds flat. Then ZTE also released the Axon 40 series with probably the most impressive looking under-display camera and really sweet looking hardware in general, and Sharp released the Aquos R7 in Japan, which is the next generation of phones having a huge 1-inch camera sensor and lenses made by Leica. Fancy. Then we got 26 terabyte hard drives and 15 terabyte SSDs for the first time ever, thanks to Western Digital, which is pretty insane. And Sonos also released their new soundbar called the Ray, where the most interesting thing is that it comes with Sonos's very own voice assistant. The company is in a pretty tough negotiating position with Google and Amazon, who own the classic virtual assistants, so it kind of makes sense that they'd want to build their own tech, even if it is just a backup option. And if those were somehow not enough releases for your week, well, my first story is going to be about Google I.O., where Google released yet more new products. There were 3 concrete devices launched, starting with the Pixel 6a, which is a $449 mid-range phone that comes with the same Tensor processor from the Pixel 6 and has similar cameras as last year's Pixel 5, but it drops the screen refresh rate to just 60 Hz. That's a bit of a trade-off, but if the performance and the cameras are great, I think this might still be a very good deal. Then there was the Pixel Watch, which comes with a fully rounded display, somewhat surprisingly thick bezels, and perhaps most interestingly, full Fitbit integration. Google bought Fitbit a while ago, so that makes sense, and I do wonder if they'll bring the Fitbit features to all of the Wear OS platform, or if they will keep it exclusive for their own watches going forward. Let's see. Anyway, and the third set of products that they released were the Pixel Buds Pros, which were Google's first earbuds with active noise cancelling, spatial audio, and a price tag of $199, and a custom chip from Google, with the company increasingly trying to put their own chip designs in more and more products. There was of course also a bunch of software stuff announced from Google Wallet that could hold not only payment cards, but also personal IDs and more, just like Apple's solution. Google announced that they have optimized 20 different Google apps to have better native tablet interfaces for bigger screens, which goes well with their push for bigger screens with Android 12L. Then there was a bunch of AI stuff, including the Nest Hub using on-device AI to recognize that you're looking at it, so you don't have to use the OKG wake-up word when you want to give it a command, and more. But I think the most interesting thing was that Google announced a ton of stuff for the far future as well, things that are really not going to be released anytime soon yet. The company just straight up showed what the Pixel 7 will look like without giving any further details beyond saying that it will come with the next generation Tensor chip. They teased a Pixel tablet for 2023, probably a year ahead of schedule, and this really drives home that someone inside the Android team has decided to take big screens seriously again, even if the tablet itself seems entirely, bland, I guess. And they even teased a pair of prototype AR glasses. This prototype doesn't seem to have any cameras, so it is not really layering things on top of your vision like a Microsoft HoloLens, for example, but instead it is just a fancy screen with some real-time translation built in, and they no doubt might be using some of the displays from the company called Rexium, which they have recently acquired. I really wonder why Google feels the need to show us products that are so far ahead into the future, but I guess why not? Okay, and my second story of the week is going to be a short one, and it is the EU bringing out a new proposal that might just break end-to-end encryption, maybe forever. Ars Technica calls this a, quote, war upon end-to-end encryption, and like usual, it is dressed up as an attempt to prevent and combat child sexual abuse. What else? Under the proposal, the EU would basically have the ability to force any online service to scan the private messages of their users for child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, quote, regardless of the technology used in the online exchanges. While the proposal calls end-to-end encryption an important security tool, it makes it pretty clear that encrypted messages have to be scanned as well. That of course would completely break the idea of end-to-end encryption, since the service provider would have to have the ability to decrypt any message at will, which is, I guess, exactly what the EU wants. They want encryption, but access for them if they want it. If you remember, Apple got in trouble a while ago when they suggested scanning photos for CSAM material before uploading them to iCloud, and they had to pull their decision back due to public outcry, so I expect there will be plenty of well-deserved pushback against this EU proposal as well, and it might never pass at all. That said, every couple of months we hear of a new government deciding that they now want to end end-to-end encryption as well, so eventually one of them will probably have it their way, and then once we get there, it's gonna get really difficult. Okay, my third story this week will be an exclusive report from Reuters, who claims that the Indian government has frozen yet another $478 million of Xiaomi's money. This apparently happened back in February, so about 3 months ago, and it is on top of the $700 million plus asset freeze that I reported on last week, meaning that they are at a total of almost $1.5 billion, or about half of Xiaomi's entire global profit for the year 2021. Ouch! Unlike the other asset freeze, this one has not been publicly communicated yet by the government, so details are a little bit scarce, but while the last story talked about illegal transfers abroad for fake services, this new punishment basically alleges a practice called transfer pricing. According to Reuters, quote, the Chinese company purchased smartphones from its contract manufacturers at inflated costs in India, allowing it to record a smaller profit by selling them to customers and evading corporate income taxes. So, two different government entities are now claiming that Xiaomi has basically moved money out of the country in two different ways. First, overpaying for the products that they have received, which of course moves money abroad, and second, paying for a service that doesn't exist to a subsidiary abroad. Both of these are, if true, tax evasion, and things are not looking great. Meanwhile, reports show that Xiaomi has accused the authorities of physical violence and coercion during their investigations, claiming that not only executives but their families were threatened too, which the agency unsurprisingly claims to be untrue. Like last week, it is basically impossible for us to evaluate any of these stories on a factual basis yet, so I would urge you to not make a decision in your head right now based on your pre-existing biases and just wait and see how this goes. But basically, one thing that we know for sure is that Xiaomi is not having a great time in India. We don't know if the second freeze will be appealed by Xiaomi as well, like they've done with the first one, or what will happen with the frozen assets yet, but half their global profits is no joke, and given that Xiaomi is willing to accuse the government agencies like that, well, that shows that they're really not happy with the situation at all, and they might be seriously reconsidering their ties with the country. Now, the US government is also probing various Chinese companies who might be skirting tariffs, but in the solar panel space, and this investigation has caused more than a third of the US's utility-scale solar projects to be cancelled or delayed this year. Pretty wild. You can read the details of this insane story and many others like it in Morning Brew, which is where I get many of my most interesting news stories every day. Morning Brew covers tech, business, and policy topics, so pretty much exactly what I cover on this channel. One of their other recent stories was the current apocalyptic mood in Silicon Valley, where so many startups are suddenly having a tough time that it's basically called the second .com crash, for example. Their stories are compact, well-researched, and well-written. They are really fun in a way that business news often is honestly not. And I think if you like to stay informed with the kind of news that I cover, this is a great way to do just that. Morning Brew is free. You get a carefully curated feed in your inbox every day. Signing up only takes about 15 seconds at the link in the description, and you'll be all set. Check it out, and I'll see you next Friday.